Hello and welcome back to the Check Swing podcast with my man Santa and myself. We are here for yet another Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend that the Check Swing podcast is live and on the air. Like I always like to start every show, not start every show. I always like to start every show. Every show that I do. Don't laugh, it ain't funny.
With a live on air blooper.
Live on air blooper is what it is. That's why it's live. We're not fixing that. I like to start off every show by asking, how you been? So, Miguel, it's been a week. How you been, brother?
Been good, man. Been very well. Some changes have been happening. Although I do have a bone to pick with you because you kind of predicted that the Phillies would not be in first place by the end of the season, and based on the way they've been playing, they will not finish the season in first place. But that's neither here nor there. But tonight I'm wearing a Navy shirt because I'm proud to say that after some, quite a few challenges, my son Devin Jones has graduated from boot camp in the Naval Academy. He's based out at the Great Lakes, Illinois. And he did very well during camp. I think he'll be actually stationed out there for about a year or two, and then he'll be able to travel pretty much wherever he wants to go. He'll be able to travel abroad. So I'm just really proud of my son, Devin. Had to make some tough choices, but he's everything's starting to come together, and he's living out some of his dreams. So just proud of him. That's all.
Absolutely, man. Proud Papa and proud of you too, Devin. I'm glad to see that you were able to finish boot camp, and now the world is your oyster at this point.
And some of the money that we spent on him growing up, I got back with this wonderful mug.
Hey, well, that's cool. It keeps everything cold or hot. It's one of them things.
Yes, sir.
Man, well, be careful with that because if you put some hot tea in it, it will be hot 4 hours later.
Yes, sir.
Be careful. Be careful. So, as we do here on the Check Swing podcast, we talk about topics concerning sports as a whole. We are baseball coaches. We like to talk baseball. We like to talk strategy, philosophy, some of the things that we have experienced, some of the challenges that we have seen. And we have a wealth of knowledge. Plus, we know people with a wealth of knowledge to talk about the game. I don't know what's going on over there, Miguel, but you got a big noise going on over there. I don't know what that is. You all right over there?
Yeah.
Sound like you're in a wind tunnel. Oh, there we go. Sounds better now.
We're good now.
Yeah.
I was playing with some volume settings, so
you may have
been listening to my fan in high definition.
Okay. You have to turn the gain down a little bit. I can dig it. But one thing, so Miguel comes up with way better topics than I do, right?
Oh, stop
Miguel
it.
needs to just go ahead and produce this show because as I'm like trying to find a topic to talk about, Miguel sends me what is called a meme. They're memes, right? It'll be a meme, right? Let me pull this meme up because I didn't put it on the thing, but I'm going to read it to you as soon as I find your name in the text messages.
I can read it.
Oh, well, shoot. Well, then go ahead then.
I had it open. This was actually in one of those groups on Facebook that you and I think you had forwarded me to. But it says Major League Baseball has taken athleticism, i.e. stolen bases, triples, bunting for a hit and runs, etc., out of the game. Now, the argument this person makes is that, it translates to fewer blacks in the game because of the athleticism aspect of it.
And so that's what we're here to discuss today. We want to discuss what happened to athleticism in baseball, because in that statement that you read, it's talking about MLB, Major Leagues. But it's not just the major leagues from my experience. It's youth baseball on up, kind of. And we'll discuss that. But first, when we talk about athleticism in baseball, let's explain what we're talking about there. We're not necessarily talking defensively. We're not talking about defensive athleticism. Three positions that I think about, or maybe I should say three positions that I don't think about when it comes to athleticism in baseball. And people will be mad that I say it, but I don't care. We can discuss it if you want. Pitcher, catcher, first base. Okay. Two of the three positions I've played. I played first base before, but I don't count it. It wasn't a good good move by my coach. No, it wasn't a good experience at all. But pitcher, catcher, first base. Now, with that being said, I in college had a very athletic first baseman in my last couple of years of college. Very athletic first base. He was an amazing first base. Might have been the best first baseman I've ever played with. But when you think about it, like you think of your shortstops, your outfielders, second baseman, and to a point, your third baseman. Because third baseman can make some very athletic plays. But we're talking more so offensively. The bunting, the hit and runs, like Miguel was reading, the double steals, the strategy when it comes to manufacturing runs in the game of baseball. So we're talking about guys like Juan Pierre, guys like Ichiro, guys like Ricky Henderson. These guys thrived in that aspect of the game. Now, Miguel and I have coached together for a while. I don't know how long it's been actually, but we've coached together for a while. And
8 years, 8 or 9 years.
Has it been that long? It's been a while. But one of the things that when you sent me this meme, one of the first things that came to mind is when I was coaching at, I'm not going to name the facility where I was coaching. I was coaching at a facility before the facility I'm coaching at now. And I was helping out a team. It was like a 15U team or something like that. And there was bunting situations, obvious bunting situations, right? There was, no, I'm not even going to go there. In practice, we were talking about how, when I throw BP, which is batting practice, I always say, the first two bunt, work on your bunts, the first two bunts. You're loud again. Go ahead, turn that down, Miguel. A little more. Keep on going. There you go. And the coach said to me, he said, "No, I don't work on bunting. Bunting's for bunt. I'm going to clean it up. Bunting is for wussies." That's what he said. So now these kids are going to go through a whole summer season, and they're not going to work on bunting at all. The school that Miguel and I coached at, it was an advantage to be able to bunt because of the athleticism of the student athletes that we coached. But it seems that, and Miguel, I want to get your opinion on this. It seems that the analytics of the game have taken away the bunting, the stealing, the hit and runs. And what's your feeling on that?
See, here's the thing. Like, analytics, I believe, has its place. I think the issue that you run into is when you have a coach or a system or a program that relies on nothing but analytics. You know what I mean? Like, I believe in, exit velo, pop time. I think those are like measurable, and I've said that for, quite a few episodes. Like, those are measurable things because, you can measure the progress from the beginning to, just about the end. But when you start getting into like a little bit too deep, in my opinion, that's where you get into like, you get into, you're standing in front of a sheet and you're playing percentages for the entire game, even practice to a degree. But when I hear the names that you were bringing up, like the Ricky Hendersons, the Tony Gwynns, and I think when we were talking in our pre-show, like the Vince Colemans, when they would get on base, you're like 50-50 he steals. You know what I mean? Like, or they're going to at least move him over. You kind of knew the strategy to try to get him home. You know what I mean? Now it's like, there's several games this year where it's like 5 home runs is not enough to win the game, and it's like, why not? You know, and I was when I was at the Phillies Mets game a couple weeks ago, and I didn't realize it, but it's like, you know, oh yeah, Harper has like 20, 22 home runs, but he only has like 45 RBIs. So he could literally, like, if he went on a string, you know, the rest of the season to hit like 40 home runs, he may not have 100 RBIs. That's mind-boggling to me.
Right.
It's because it's like the art of producing multiple runs other than the home run is just like trash. It's like we don't bunt, like you said, we don't bunt, you know, buntings for wussies, whatever. But it's like I can remember 2 games that you and I coached in the summer where one bunt started a rally and wound up helping us win the game by 2 runs. Mm-hmm. And another one put us in position, you know, to win it. So both times, like, you know, it helped us win the game. And I just think, like, taking the athleticism away from the game is what's hurting the game overall. You know, because your market, you know, you know, I think about like the current players, the next generation, like Tatis and Acuna. Even with their playing styles, it seems like, you know, MLB is like suppressing that because they're still kind of trying to, you know, keep the traditionalists, you know. And I'll admit, like, you know, for years I've been a purist, like, you know, no DH in the National League, but it's like something's got to change to make this game more marketable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we talk about that almost every week about the marketing of the game of baseball, and it's funny. I was earlier today. I was actually looking at a baseball advertisement for Major League Baseball advertisement, and they were talking about players, but they didn't name players specifically. What they did was they put certain players on there, and gotta turn that down again. Every time you mute yourself, you come back loud. I don't know what that is, but.
All right, I can barely hear you, but it's all right.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There you go. Every time you mute yourself, you come back and that noise is loud again. I don't know. But anyway, the marketing of the game is weird. But, you know, they talk about speeding up the game, making the game more interesting, right? I went to a game this weekend against the Reds. It was actually a game that the Phillies won against the Reds. And it was a pitcher's duel for, I guess, about 6 innings. It was a pitcher's duel. And for the purist, for a fan of baseball, somebody that knows the game, that's a great game of baseball, right? But for somebody that is not necessarily a fan of the game and you know understands the game, it would be the next 3 innings that was more exciting to them because you had the triple by Bryce Harper with the error, and then he scores. You had the home run as soon as Archie Bradley comes into the game. That's what people that are not purists of the game find exciting. And I think that the bunts, the drag bunt, the steals and all like that, I think that stuff can be exciting too. Unfortunately, they just don't do it. And it seems as if starting from a younger level, they don't teach it as much. It's not taught as much. I mean, I know I always talk about bunts and when I talk to a younger kid that I coached a 9U team or a 10U team or whatever it was I was coaching, and then I've coached teenagers, they always feel like there's a mentality there of and with the younger kids, I know it was given to them, right? There's a mentality of the bunting is worthless. There's like no point in bunting, and that's, to me, that's not the case. I mean, I wish we had somebody on the show that could try to debate me on the topic and try to change my mind, but it's not going to happen. And when I played college ball, you know, we had one coach that, you know, he coached basically a straightforward game. He might call for a bunt here and there, but then the second coach we had that came in from the Delmarva Shorebirds, which was a minor league affiliate of the Baltimore Orioles. He was a small ball guy. He was a drag bunt guy. He was a you steal second, we'll bunt you over to third, and we're going to score. Like, we're going to, and that's the part of the game that, as a player, I enjoyed that. As a spectator, I enjoy that, and I've talked to you many times about it. about Juan Pierre. You always joke with me about Juan
That's your
Pierre is
boy.
my guy. But I'm thinking about the 2008 Phillies, the World Series Phillies. At the top of that lineup, you had Jimmy Rollins, Shane Victorino. Both guys could steal bases. Both guys could cause havoc on the bases. You had to do things to get them out. You had to make plays to get them out. They were still Chase Utley too. You know, 1, 2, 3. It was Jimmy, Shane, Chase, and then you had Ryan Howard. Now you knew Ryan Howard wasn't stealing, but if you got those guys on base, now you let the bopper go ahead and swing the bat. But if you only get 1 or 2 of those guys on base, you can cause some havoc by creating base runners, stealing bases, and stuff like that. You know, I would just love to know how people think about what people think about that. You know, if you're a baseball fan and you feel the same way I do, or if you feel differently from me, hit me up 215-486-0335. All right, let me know what you think, because I'm interested in knowing what you think. Where do you stand on it? Because I know we're kind of similar on it, but where do you stand on it?
No, I can, like, even looking at that 2008 team, you had Jimmy Rollins with 47 stolen bases. Shane Victorino had 36, and Jason Worth had 20. Even that is, to me, is kind of low, because
Jason Worth was the 5 hitter, if I'm not mistaken.
He 5 through 7, yeah. And they would kind of fluctuate Victorino from like the 2 hole to like 7th,
6 hole, yeah.
Right.
You're right.
But you see what he kind of did. It was like, and back then it was kind of the bloop and blast mentality. Like, you know, J-Roll get your bloop, and then you get your blast from either Utley or Howard. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I'm completely like, it's amazing. I think the guy, like the team that we had coached, you know, in the summer was kind of excited to run. You know, I think it was 2 or 3 players. Every time they got on, they looked at me. They were like, I'm like, let me give you the sign, and I'll let you know. But they were always anxious to run, which was exciting for me as a coach. But also, I think, you know, we as a team were excited about, and that's why we had such a success and a winning record with that team. But I remember the first team that you and I coached, we were great defensively. We had awesome pitching until, you know, injuries kind of caught up to us towards the end of that season, but we couldn't hit worth a damn. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we struggled at the plate.
We struggled at the plate, but even when we got on, it was like, all right, I'll take a 2-step lead, you know, trying to convince them to take secondaries. But it's like the mentality was not like base to base. You know, I'm going to do whatever I can to get to second base. Even if there's a ball in the hole, I might go to third. But, you know, it's like the game is too safe. Like if you get outside of the borders of, you know, athleticism, you know, because being an athlete, you take chances.
Right.
You know what I mean? When you look at an Olympic athlete, like like watching Simone Biles do her flips and stuff like that. Like I don't know how a human body can do that at any size or height.
She's amazing.
She's amazing. But you don't become amazing by being basic. You don't become amazing by, you know, going station to station. You take chances. You take risks. And all that success that she got, I can only imagine what the errors or the failures were to get to that success.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes me think, like, what would really be the reason to have speed in your lineup at that point if you're working base to base?
You don't. I mean, I think I gotta compile the stats, but you know, in the 80s, you know, Ricky Henderson would average 100 stolen bases a season, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the 90s, you know, okay, maybe 70 or 80 stolen bases with your Ken Griffey's, and you know, but now it's like when in the early 2000s, it was like, okay, 40 was like considered a lot. Now it's like 20, 25. Even, you know, I was looking at a stat too, because I think baseball has a problem with trying to figure out pace of play versus speeding up the game. I think they're getting the two kind of confused. So like from 2001 to 2015, the average pitcher in a game would throw an average of 95 pitches. From 2016 to 2020, it's dropping to 89. And now you have these expanded bullpens, right? So now So, like the Phillies bullpen, like I always point to '93 because that was like the fun team that I watched when I was a child. We had 11 pitchers in the bullpen. Now you have on average of like 12 and 13. You know what I mean? And so a good quality start is considered 6 innings, maybe 7, and then you have a go between guy, a series of go between guys. So like one thought I have is, all right, well, cap your pitching staff. No team can have more than X amount of pitchers. Because now you have to throw your pitchers a little bit more, especially those middle inning guys. You may have to throw your starters, but again, going back to the analytics, and all this kind of compressed data, it's like, all right, pitchers can't throw X amount of pitches per week, per day, per hour, whatever the case may be. And I get, player safety is a key component of it. Longevity is a key component. But I remember watching like old school baseball games. You didn't have the pitch count ticker on the top left-hand corner. Like nobody know when I look back at all these stats, whatever website that you use, and I look at like this the fifth game of the World Series in 2008. How many pitches did Cole Hamels throw?
No idea.
Nobody gives a crap. We won the World Series. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I think there was one game like Fernando Valenzuela in like the 80s threw like 190 pitches and got the win. You know what I mean? It's like you don't see that anymore because, and I get the longevity and the durability issue, but from a fan standpoint, it's just a hard game to watch.
Has analytics and money taken the fun out of the game?
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of the both. I mean, the money has always been there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now, now with the money, it's become a business, and now you're putting your analytics. When I first started hearing about hearing the word analytics, when IBM started having those Watson commercials, that's when I started hearing about it. And then they started having analytics in sports. Now, let's take a little comparison. So analytics has changed not just baseball, it's changed basketball too, and I'll tell you how. The Sixers have one of the best big men in the game. Okay, Joel Embiid, one of the best big men, if not the best big man in the game, right? In the 90s, you had big men like Shaquille O'Neal, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, Rick Smith, all these guys. And what would you do? They would establish themselves down low. You get the ball to them. They grind and work, and they get an easy bucket down. I shouldn't say easy bucket, but they get a bucket down low, right? Now, with analytics in the game, the big man, the Patrick Ewing, the David Robinson, the Shaquille O'Neal type big man has now become more of a guard type player. You see, people in Philly complain all the time about how Joel Embiid is playing too much at the perimeter. The MVP this year, Nikola Jokic, perimeter big man. A lot of guys playing on the perimeter and not establishing themselves. I mean, you get Embiid the ball down low, nobody's stopping him. He's scoring on whoever. But the problem is the analytics say instead of getting that 2, it might be better off to shoot that 3 because 3 is better than 2. Now with analytics in baseball, it's all right, we're not going to steal because you might get thrown out.
Right. You don't want to bunt. You don't want to sacrifice or give up and out in any situation.
Right. And so it's changing a lot of things. I was going to make a comparison to wrestling when you said something earlier, but you kept going, and
wrestling has its own set of issues, and I think it's more involved in script writing than it is in analytics.
Yeah, the whole. If I can remember what I was going to say about it, I'll come back to it. But it's funny how this topic kind of seems to affect the African American baseball player. Why is that? Because they assume the African American baseball player is athletic, right? Ryan Howard wasn't athletic. I mean, he was an athlete, but he wasn't athletic. Jimmy Rollins was athletic, right? Guys like Dexter McCutcheon, athletic. Now, shout out to my man Darnell Bluford. What's up, bro? He's probably watching right now. He once told me that he got a piece of advice from a minor league ball player about his two sons, because his two sons played for us. And the advice was, make sure your sons know how to play the outfield, because once they get to this level, and you're talking about minor league, that's where they put all the black players in the outfield. And I had to think about that. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. A lot of the black ball players in the major leagues are in the outfield. And I said, well, why do they do that? He said, because they assume they're more athletic. Yeah, they assume they can run fast, they can track a ball down and stuff like that. And I was just like, man, that's interesting to have your black ball players be assumed to be more athletic, but then you take the athletic offense away from the game, which, I mean, if you make the game more fun, more people will watch. Baseball should not be trying to attract new fans. They really shouldn't. They need to cater to the fans that they have, in hopes that they can attract the fans that are growing. You're not going to get new adult fans in baseball. Right. You know, you'll get a handful. Of course, there'll be some. You're not going to get new adult.
Because they actually like the game. Period.
Exactly. There's a game that people that my age have grown up playing. There's a way that we've grown up playing. For instance, they were talking about moving the pitcher's mound back in Major League Baseball.
God, no.
For what? That's for what? Why?
Right. Why? Well, here's the argument to that. Not that I agree with it, but I mean, I do and I don't. They're saying that the pitching is so phenomenal nowadays, and it is. You know, you got a lot of pitchers that are throwing. You know, I think somebody throwing 95 back, you know, in the 90s was like, wow, that's fantastic. Now 95 is an average. You know, average top speed.
Right.
So, you know, the pitchers do throw harder. You know, you know, I just think that the focus is more so on trying to hit the ball harder and higher versus trying to really learn the strike zone and learning how to hit in spots. So, like, you know, trying to hit, you know, opposite field, trying to hit, you know, trying to hit against the shift. You know, kudos to Harper for the amount of times that he's at least attempted to butt down the third baseline when they do it. But it just seems like, you know, I don't know. It might have been David Ortiz or one of the big players back in the day. Well, not recently, but they're not playing anymore. You know, their philosophy is, all right, if they're going to shift me, then I'm just going to hit it over their heads. And it's like, you know, that was one of the many issues that I had with Ryan Howard, because he should still be playing. Him and Albert Pujols came up together. Albert Pujols is still playing. Now, granted, he's, you know, a little bit, you know, Can I put a quarter in the meter real quick? I was watching. Actually, you texted me when we were watching the same game. I never thought I would see the day when Albert Pujols was intentionally walked. Excuse me, where a player would be intentionally walked to pitch to Albert Pujols. I never thought I'd see that day. You know what else? You remember that behind the back play he made at first base? He made this really nice play. He kind of backhand.
Yes. The ball bouncing. Yeah.
That was a nice play for a 40-year-old. You know what I mean? But again, Ryan Howard should have been on the field opposing him, you know, trying to make that play. But it just kind of goes to show you, like, once he was done, once the league figured him out, he refused to adjust. And I think that's what a lot of players tend to do, is like once they get figured out, they're just like, oh, well, I'm just going to swing harder, or I'm just going to, you know, stick to my zone and not change.
And wait for that fastball. Once they figured out Ryan Howard couldn't hit that slider off the plate, and he swung at it every time, that's all he saw. That's all he would see. I do want to say, you know, one quick thing. The return of the Little League World Series is this year. I'm so happy. I am a big fan of the Little League World Series. Unfortunately, you know, due to COVID and all like that, they won't have international teams here in Williamsport, PA.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, that's what I was told. They're actually going to have, I believe, the top two teams from the regionals are all going to. So, for instance, here the Pennsylvania team and the New Jersey team are going to play are going to the Little League World Series. I don't know who all is going from the other regions, but
what was always your favorite non-American team to watch?
Japan.
Yes, I was gonna say.
Japan.
You know what made me a fan of Japan? I think there was one time.
I know it was, but go ahead. I want you to tell the story.
It was a pre-practice thing they were going through, and the coach was just zinging golf balls at them, like fungo and golf balls. I was like, and I think I brought it to you. I was like,
no, there's no, we're not.
It don't work. It will still work to this day.
Man, listen,
man,
there will be people without teeth right now because of that.
Because they need to learn how to field. That's why they need to stop fielding with their face and their chins and use their glove.
I agree with you there, but I don't agree with the golf ball. Maybe you get a golf ball to me.
One-handed fungos all day, baby.
I know that was your thing.
One thing I gotta say about like the analytics data, and I was listening to something, and somebody had tried to prove with an analytical stat that Dave Hollins was a better defensive player than Mike Schmidt. And that's how silly like the analytics can get. That's why I say like some analytical data I do believe in. But when you overanalyze and over digitize baseball, that's the nonsense that you can get. That a person, nothing against Dave Hollins,
who was a decent baseball player.
Decent baseball player versus the greatest third baseman that ever lived. And you're telling me that statistically you'd rather have somebody that never won a Gold Glove, never won an MVP, never won a World Series. It's like, come on. Seriously.
It's like saying Kevin Stocker was better than Jimmy Rollins. Kevin Stocker was decent, wasn't better than Jimmy.
He was decent for 3 weeks. You know what I mean?
He was supposed to be the man. I can remember Kevin Stocker was supposed to be the man, but yeah, he ended up being nothing. Any more on this topic?
No, I mean, maybe to kind of transition to like the away from analytics and like the marketability of the game. Harper had said in the beginning of the season that he doesn't understand why baseball is not in the Olympics or why Major League Baseball refuses to have baseball in the Olympics. And he took a shot at the commissioner saying it seems like they didn't want to lose the revenue for 2 weeks of baseball players playing in the Olympics.
I guarantee that's it.
It has to be.
I guarantee. Because if you think of like the WNBA does it.
Every sport does it. Except
2 weeks off. 2 weeks off within their season. They send their best players to the Olympics. Mm-hmm. All right. The NBA, of course, they don't play during the summer. We're not supposed to, but they send their best players to the Olympics. And that's why they came up with the World Baseball Classic, which is great to watch, right? But it's not the Olympics. It's basically a world championship. Right. I would love to see these professional baseball players in the Olympics. I would love to see that back. 2 weeks. It's only 2. And part of the problem is probably if you have to stop your season for 2 weeks, that means you have to add those 2 weeks to the end, and the World Series already goes into November, right? So to me, it's like, maybe start it a couple weeks. I don't know. I believe that Major League Baseball players should be in the Olympics.
If they could understand the long-term money they can make from this instead of the quick cash,
mm-hmm.
If you had a starting lineup that included, Betts, Soto, Acuna, Tatis, Machado.
I'm not sure if all of those guys would be playing for the United States, though.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Just saying. But if you had like Betts, Bryce Harper, Mike Trout,
I still wouldn't be rooting for the U.S., though.
I'm a root for the U.S.
I'm just saying.
I'm a root for the U.S., but I'm just saying. I remember what I was going to say now about the whole wrestling thing, and it's similar to some things that I've said over the weeks on this show. So Major League Baseball, when we were talking about the marketing, they truly need somebody right now that is bigger than the game, right? And I know people cringe when I say things like that, but hear me out. Every sport that does well, every major sport that does well has an athlete that's bigger than the game. Michael Jordan was bigger than the game. LeBron James is bigger than the game. Tom Brady is, I hate to say it, Tom Brady's bigger than the game, right? Football is its own entity, though. You don't even, you can almost say football aside. Football will sell itself without a commercial, okay? In this country. Back in the day, you had Ken Griffey Jr., who was bigger than the game. You know, the Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa summer. Mark McGwire was bigger than the game of baseball. And I know people are probably cringing hearing me say this, but there are certain times when there are players that are bigger than the game. And and the point I was going to make with wrestling, Hulk Hogan in wrestling was bigger than wrestling. The Rock was bigger than wrestling. You know what I mean? Andre the Giant was bigger than wrestling. So baseball probably doesn't want to have somebody that's bigger than the game because as they always just market the game as opposed to the people of the game. But that's what they need. They need somebody right now that's bigger than the game. And, you know, we at one point kind of thought Bryce was going to be that guy. I think they thought Mike Trout was going to be that guy, but, you know, he's not. Unfortunately, I mean, he's a great player, but just not bigger than the game. Right,
but you got to have players. The players that you market have to be marketable, number one, and have to have a desire to market. Trout doesn't want. He just wants to play ball. You know, right. That's why he signed the contract that he signed and didn't want to like go into any bidding wars with like the Phillies or the Yankees or anything like that.
He just wants to play ball.
Just wants to play ball.
But going back to the Olympic conversation, those Olympics would be great for the game for Major League Baseball.
Absolutely.
Right? Absolutely. Because the Olympics tend to create somebody that's bigger than the sport. Simone Biles was bigger than gymnastics. Okay, she's a household name. Kevin Durant played amazing basketball, and he's already a household name. But Kevin Durant doesn't need to be, but can be bigger than the game. And his performance in the Olympics kind of just solidified his stardom. All right. Baseball doesn't have a way to solidify anybody's stardom. You can hit the game-winning home run in the World Series, Joe Carter. Joe Carter wasn't bigger than the game, but Joe Carter, well, at least in Philadelphia, and I'm sure in Toronto.
Did you have to bring him up though?
It hurts me as much as it hurts you. Don't you know?
Not Altuve because it was against the Yankees. You could have done anybody else.
But the thing is, Joe Carter did it in the World Series.
In the World Series,
and ended the World Series. You know that was my point.
I got
you. And Altuve. So I think I mentioned it on the show before. Altuve got his jersey ripped off early this year.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I don't know what happened to that embarrassing tattoo that he was trying to hide a few years ago. Anyway, any last words, Miguel, before you give me that my quiz?
Man, I don't know. I got all messed up with the analytics conversation. And then you ended with Joe Carter. I'm highly disappointed.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to. I don't want to end anything with Joe Carter because Anyway, let me stop saying his name. We might end up fighting if I see him.
Telling me.
Don't let me see you in the streets, Joe Carter. No, that's actually not really a threat. I'll probably say what's up to you if I saw you in the street. So, got to be careful on the internet these days.
I know. I probably try to throw him that slider and see if I can strike him out.
But so every week at the end of the show, Miguel puts up something like this. Excuse me, hold on, I got to sneeze. All right. Be happy I muted that.
Thank you for that.
And I'm trying to fix my microphone. Miguel selects a player. It used to be a nickname. That was too hard for me. But now he selects a player, gives me a few hints, and I have to try to guess the player who he's talking about. And this looks like it's gonna be hard. I don't know if I can figure this one out at all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 teams.
One of those teams he played with twice, believe it or not.
Okay. So 13 different stints with teams. A Cy Young Award winner and a 4-time All-Star. Can you tell me the era that he played?
He played 21 years, actually missed 2 seasons in between, and then came back and played like another 7, 8 years. I think he had Tommy John. But yeah, he played 21 years, I'd say late 90s, early 2000s, until almost recently. He played a long time.
I was going to say Jamie Moyer.
No.
But
so here are the teams he played for in order: Cleveland, Montreal, Chicago White Sox, Anaheim. Then became Los Angeles, Boston, Oakland, New York Mets, Chicago White Sox the second time, Atlanta, Minnesota, and Texas.
Wow, that helped me. That didn't help me at all.
No,
that did not help me at all. I'm trying to think. Bartolo Colon.
You got it.
I got it.
You got it.
Yo, wow. Okay, cool. I'll take it. That was a complete guess. That was a complete guess because I wasn't sure how many years he played.
He played 21 years.
But when you said Mets, I'm like, all right, who played for the Mets that was a good pitcher that played for a while? I didn't know how many years he played, though.
And it's funny because on his, I think on his professional website, he still goes by the original weight that he started with as a rookie. He's still listed as like 6'2", 215. But one of the other websites was like, no, he's 285.
Wow.
I believe he's actually playing in the Dominican leagues right now. So
probably.
He's probably having a catch with Ricky Henderson and Julio Franco.
And did you want to add these in here, or is that something you wanted to put up here?
Oh no, that is not.
Okay, then I'll take it down.
That's when I was angry with analytics and Dave.
Okay.
Dave Hollins is better than Mike Schmidt. Crap.
Very, very. That was a good one. You didn't think I was going to get it too, so I'm kind of happy I got it on my own in a sense.
What, so you said you thought it was Bartolo because of the longevity?
No, I didn't know how many years he played. I did know he played for a while, and I was trying to think. Like when you said Mets, it was just like, all right, who played for the Mets that was a good pitcher that played for a while that recently stopped playing? And I think I mentioned last week that I went to a game against the Mets and Bartolo Colon was pitching.
How did he do that game?
He dominated.
Did he really?
I think we lost, so I think I really don't remember. I was just like I was sitting like right behind the Mets dugout, and it was almost the fact that I was seeing Bartolo Colon up close pitching was kind of cool to me. It's kind of scary because then, like now, you go to the games and there's nets all the way down the line, but there was no net behind the dugout, and I was laser focused the whole. I didn't pick up my phone. I was making sure I wasn't going to get by foul because foul ball's going right out that way. I was a little nervous, but yeah, that was a cool situation. The Mets kicked our behinds, and you know how the Mets fans can get.
Yeah.
So that's what it was. So you want to talk about who that is behind you at all? Yeah, that's hot.
That is the legendary Dick Allen, who passed away. I want to say back in November, December, and I'd say the last like 2 years, especially, I've been kind of advocating he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yes, you have.
They finally retired. The Phillies finally retired his number. And I think it's because, if you read the story about him, he had a very tumultuous, career in Philadelphia. He was the one that was writing, messages to the fans, in the dirt before he was traded, because, race relations between Philadelphia and, its black athletes in the 60s was, a challenge to say the least. But, the picture that you actually see here was actually on the cover of Sports Illustrated during the 1972 season, which was his MVP season. So, when you look at, anybody can look up his stats, but he has the stats of a Hall of Famer. But because of the stuff that happened and the terrible press he got from the writers, in the 60s. And it goes back to like the traditions of baseball. Like, baseball writers, are involved in who gets into the Hall of Fame, And I still think there's still that racism that kind of hangs over because they remember the stories that I'd say almost half or just about all of them have been refuted. And they still hang on to that, that whole tradition, that old school mentality. But there's no reason why, if Harold Baines is in the Hall of Fame and doesn't even touch the numbers of Dick Allen, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Bobby Bonds, they talk about how majestic his hits were and how great of a baseball player. And how actually how fast he was. He didn't steal bases, but he was quick. He was fast. And I think in one game he hit 2 inside the park home runs in the same game.
Wow.
But it's stuff like that. The Philly press only talks about the stuff towards the end of his first tenure. And he did make a second comeback, towards the end of his career, and all kind of was forgiven. And he kind of helped start the wave of the Philly success in the 70s leading up to the championship. But I was hoping that the vote would be in to get him into the Hall before he passed, but it just didn't happen. But they have that committee coming up. I forget what the committee's called. It's like a special selection committee where once you're past your eligibility of being elected, then this group will kind of vote you in. Again,
right? Yeah.
Harold Baines a great player, but Harold Baines versus Dick Allen, I just have issues with that. Plus,
Harold Baines is no Dick Allen.
Tony La Russa was the one that was on that voting committee, and he had coached Harold Baines on 2 different teams. So
well, there you go. There you go.
So,
well, that's going to do it for this week's Check Swing podcast. We will be re-airing this episode throughout the week at different times, so make sure you stay tuned to New Twist Radio and the New Twist Radio Facebook page to check out and see when we will be airing the show. Shout out to everybody checking us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch as we broadcast all 3 of those. And make sure you tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a friend about the Check Swing podcast because we got some good things that's coming up. Of course, the playoff push is upon us, and we're gonna have a lot of things to talk about. So, for Miguel and myself, I want to thank y'all for checking out the show, and we'll talk to y'all next time. And remember, if you're going to check your swing, now I tried to come up with something fancy right there on the spot, but I couldn't do it. So.
You should have just let it hang.
I should just
try to check your swing. And
I blew it.
Go right out.
Make sure you check your swing if it's not a strike. That was dumb.
That's the second blooper. On air blooper.
We started it off with one, going to end it with one. Talk to y'all next week, man. Peace.